So we are ready to begin session 1 under the theme of Global Pivotal State, charting a new path for Korea's development cooperation in an era of global uncertainty. So without further ado, let us begin the first session, which will be moderated by Professor Kwak Chae-sung from the Graduate School of Pan-Pacific International Studies at Kyunghee University. So now let me hand over my microphone to our distinguished moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Kwak with a warm round of applause.
Thank you. Very good morning and good evening, perhaps somewhere in the world. And I'm extremely honored and happy to moderate the very first session of the 15th ODA conference. And as we are slightly behind the schedule, let me just speed up our session. Our session's title is the Global Pivotal State. And well, not only as a donor, but also as a player in the international politics. The South Korea's position has been strengthened considerably. Now we claim as a pivotal state, bridging not only the partner countries and existing donors, but also the newly emerging donors and the existing players, both bilateral and multilateral. I think this is the venue to share the new government's strategy and policy of international development, as well as to have and listen our partners, those both bilateral and multilaterals, about the role of South Korea as a pivotal state. We have 3 distinguished guest speakers in our session. 2 are present here, and one of the speakers is waiting online. So let me just briefly introduce each of them. Firstly, we have the Mr. Won Do-yeon, the Director General of the International Development Bureau of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Korea. And we have Hao Liang-shu, the UN Assistant Secretary General and also Assistant Administrator of the UNDP. And finally, we have Heath Cosgrove, the country representative to the Republic of Korea and Japan from the US Agency for International Development. So let me invite one by one so that they can share their own ideas and also to present what they have prepared for about 15 minutes for each of them so that we can have a good time for us to share our own ideas. So if you have any questions or comments, just leave it online so that I can pick up some questions, and later I will cast the questions to the speakers. Okay, without any further ado, let me invite Mr. Won Do-yeon. The floor is yours.
Thank you, moderator. Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you are enjoying today's conference. This is our first face-to-face gathering in 3 years due to COVID. I'm very excited to be here, and I hope all of you are as well. Today, I will give a brief overview of Korea's development cooperation policy under our new government. First part of my presentation will be the overview of the history of Korea's development cooperation. Then I wish to elaborate on the global challenges we are facing. Then I will give you the actual overview of the Korea's development cooperation policy of the new government. Korea came a long way since we joined OECD DAC in 2010 the total volume of ODA reached $2.86 billion in 2021. Average annual growth rate of ODA since 2010 is 11%, which is the second highest among the OECD DAC members, next to actually Hungary. The ODA budget for this year is $3.1 billion, which is up by 7.7% as compared to the 2021. And as our Vice Minister said during his opening, the Ministry of Finance just announced next year's budget, and the numbers are actually not final, as the budget package is subject to the approval from the Parliament. But one thing I can tell you is that the ODA budget went up by 14.2% according to the proposal by the Ministry of Finance. And next year's government overall expenditure will be down by 6% as compared to this year. Korea is tightening our belt domestically, but the ODA budget is still increasing despite all that. And it is clear indication that Yoon Suk-yeol administration is dedicated for the development cooperation. I would not go into too much details about the challenges we are facing. We are faced with pandemic, conflict, and climate change, among others, such as supply chain disruptions. One thing, though, I would like to emphasize is that these challenges are interlinked, and our government is really focusing on integrated and coordinated approach to address the root cause of these complex challenges. And this is why Korea is really advocating for the humanitarian development peace nexus and the multi-stakeholder partnerships in the context of UN and other multilateral settings. I will skip this slide. You can have a look at it later. Now I wish to turn to the development cooperation policy direction under our new government. Maybe this slide is the most important slide in my presentation. The ambition of the Korean government is to become global pivotal state. The government wants to meet the expectation from the global community as the 10th largest economy in the world. Global pivotal state can mean many things. It shows Korea's aspiration to play more proactive role to promote global values, which include peace and security, human rights, democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. It also shows Korea's strong commitment to work closely together with the countries that share the common global values to strengthen the rules-based international orders. Korea's development cooperation policy will be a key instrument to achieve this aspiration. There are four main pillars in our ODA policy direction. First one is our aspiration to increase overall ODA volume. And the second one is to further strengthen Korea's humanitarian action, humanitarian works, to tackle the global challenges. And third one, our third focus is on global values, which include the peace, democracy, human rights, and rule of law. Lastly, our ambition is to become more efficient and effective in the field. As I said in my previous slides, the new government has ambition to meet the expectation of expectations as 10th largest economy in the world. One thing I wish to emphasize is it is not just about the government and ODA and so on. It's our priority is also to work very closely with the private sector as well. The second priority is our humanitarian action and to tackle the global, the root cause of global challenges. And as you can see in the slides, we provided $100 million to support the Ukraine, which is perhaps the largest contribution we provided to a single country in the same year. And we are also scaling up our investment to fight a pandemic. And on top of our existing $210 million contribution to COVAX AMC, Korea recently pledged $300 million for Act A. This slide shows our priority in humanitarian assistance. Korea was actually not the founding member of Grand Bargain commitments, but Korea joined the Grand Bargain commitment later to show our strong dedication to follow the international rules and orders. And we also have, I would like to mention that we also have a very strong overseas disaster relief team. It's called KDRT, Korea Disaster Relief Team. And it took part in various overseas operations, including the operation during the Ebola crisis in West Africa and also in earthquake in Nepal. This slide shows that we recently came up with the HD Humanitarian Development and Peace Nexus strategy, and the strategy was adopted last year, and that also we are scaling up our investment in fragile states as well. The third area of focus is our commitment to promote global values. Our focus on global values such as human rights and rule of law is coming up many times in my presentation. It is really heart of our development goals in current government. As you can see in the slides, in the speech during the 77th Liberation Day, President Yoon Suk-yeol expressed again Korea's strong willingness to contribute to the global peace and prosperity as a responsible nation. And also he mentioned that Korea will promote universal values such as freedom, human rights, and rule of law. The fourth priority is partnerships. Korea will not be working in silos. Korea has regular policy dialogues with various UN agencies, which include UNDP, WFP, and UNICEF. And also, Korea is having regular consultations with other donor countries such as US, EU, and France at the HQ level. Also, we have regular interactions at the country level with other donor countries and agencies. Our new priority is to further expand our dialogue with emerging donors as well. Our last priority is strengthening the core competencies of our development agencies, in particular KOICA. KOICA was founded in 1991. Last year was KOICA's 30th anniversary, and KOICA came a long way since then, but there is still a lot of room for improvement. In particular, scaling up its expertise in various thematic areas is key, and also further strengthening its work at the country level will be important. In order to scale up localization efforts, Korea is expanding partnerships with various CSOs at the country level. As you can see in the slides, KOICA is working closely with CSOs such as Save the Children and World Vision at the country level, carrying out various joint projects. In order to enhance core competencies, KOICA is also developing various tools to scale up its work with the private sector under its development innovation program. In particular, KOICA is scaling up its investment to support startups and social enterprises. This one and the next slide shows the history of Korea's development cooperation since Korea joined OECD DAC in 2010. I hope all of you have a look at these slides later, and mindful of the time constraint, I would like to finish my presentation here, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Won. His presentation was short, however, he gave a landscape of new government's strategy of international development in 4 priorities: continue to increase ODA volume, tackling global challenges, and forging global solidarity and promote global values, and strengthening effectiveness of development cooperation, with a special emphasis on the competence building of the executing agency like KOICA. So I hope all those agenda can be pursued as scheduled in the course of this administration as well. Thank you very much for sharing your great landscape and strategy of the policies. Right, now I'd like to move on to our speaker online. So Hao Liang Shu, Mr., the Assistant Secretary General and Assistant Administrator of the UNDP, is waiting in the title of the Triangular Cooperation in the Era of Global Uncertainty, the Role of the Republic of Korea. The floor is yours, Mr. Shu.
Thank you very much, Professor Kwok. I hope you can hear me. Professor Kwok, Director General Wong, Senior Counselor Cosgrove, Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is really my great honor to be part of this important discussion today. Thank you very much for inviting me. And let me take this opportunity to address 3 questions very quickly. The first one is that I want to touch on the global challenges that we're facing. And then I will talk briefly about the triangular cooperation and how it has changed. And then I want to touch on very briefly the role that the Republic of Korea can play, and to share our views in that regard. So thank you very much. Let me move on to the next slide, colleagues. So with less than 7.5 years to go, right, before 2030, the time frame for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. It is really clear that urgent action is needed to ensure progress towards the SDGs. Even prior to this pandemic, COVID pandemic, approximately 641 million people were living in extreme poverty across the world. However, with the advent of COVID-19, years of hard-earned progress towards achievement of SDGs were lost. And many estimates put the number of people being pushed into poverty at around 100 million. And this study that we're using today shows that 93 million people are living in extreme poverty as a result of this pandemic. So the global poverty rate has increased. And this is one challenge we see. And next slide. As such, right, the Human Development Index, which UNDP devised 30 years ago, has seen its first decline since the concept was developed in 1990, in 30 years. So this shows how severe the challenge is in terms of the human development regression. And concurrently, however, there are many other emerging issues that we're facing, particularly those related to the environment. And they are continuing to compound the risks associated with traditional socioeconomic development challenges. This is epitomized by the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, all of which are issues that greatly affect the lives and the livelihoods of those in the global south, but also in the global north, as we know, on the climate issue. For example, reports warn that the worldwide climate catastrophe has reached the level of code red. The Secretary General has spoken many times about it. So despite this, the new planetary pressure adjusted the Human Development Index, which UNDP, the Human Development Report Office, introduced in 2019, recalculated the Human Development Index according to the national levels of carbon emissions and the material resource footprint. So with this planetary adjusted Human Development Index, PHDI, it shows that the way of living in most countries on this planet is not ecologically sustainable. Of the 60 countries that were able to achieve a level of very high human development in the 2019 Human Development Index, only 10 retained that status using this new planetary adjusted Human Development Index. This shows how serious the situation is. In some countries, the developed countries' ranking declined by more than 100 places. So this shows that the challenges we face in this regard. So as the global temperature continues to rise and the CO2 emissions remain insufficiently abated, it is anticipated that the climate change might push 132 million people, more people, into poverty by 2030. And furthermore, the world continues to endure the highest number of conflicts since the creation of the United Nations. We have more than 2 billion people, right, or a quarter of the global population, now live in conflict-affected countries. While such a humanitarian crisis has been prevalent throughout history, the nature of violence that has also transformed substantially. Conflicts have become more complex, increasingly driven by non-traditional security threats, such as environmental degradation, competition for natural resources, and extreme weather events. So as a result, this nexus between humanitarian and the development challenges has further increased the difficulty of achieving the already ambitious objectives set by the Sustainable Development Goals. So as our governments and investors continue to grapple with the unprecedented effects of the converging crisis, statistics show that the COVID outbreak has increased the financing gap for sustainable development in developing countries by around 50%. You will see from the slide from $2.5 trillion a year to $3.7 trillion a year. And this does not even take into account the pressures added by the newly emerging humanitarian crises, such as the conflict in Ukraine. So these are the challenges that we're facing. Right? But also, right, this presents opportunities. Mr. Wong, in his presentation, talked about partnerships. He laid out the Republic of Korea's ODA strategy. So let us focus, in my talk very narrowly on this question of triangular cooperation, but very important topic, we believe, opportunities and challenges it presents. So looking at today's complex crisis, it is clear that they can only be overcome through integrated approaches that tackle the common drivers of many interconnected issues. Triangular cooperation, as a modality of development cooperation, can play an important role to facilitate those integrated approaches by connecting relevant actors from all sectors of society and from both the global north as well as the global south. This is because although the traditional conceptualization of triangular cooperation refers to a collaboration in which northern donor countries and multilateral organizations facilitate South-South initiatives through the provision of financial aid and technical support, the concept has evolved over time. It now involves a broader range of actors and allows each actor to play a more diverse array of roles. This has enabled triangular cooperation to become more inclusive and thus to better facilitate the dynamic exchange of innovative solutions. Right. According to the BAPA 40 conference, right, the conference strongly encouraged the countries to engage in triangular cooperation in order to enable developing countries to source and access more and broader ranges of resources, expertise, and capabilities. Against this backdrop, the Global Partnership Initiative developed a set of voluntary guidelines that seeks to promote the 9 principles on effective triangular cooperation. To complement such efforts, the GPI and the Global Partnership on Effective Development Cooperation, the GPEDC initiative, established an action area on effective triangular cooperation, which amongst other things has piloted the implementation of these voluntary guidelines. Building on such momentum, the United Nations released its first system-wide strategy on South-South and triangular cooperation to leverage South-South and triangular cooperation in supporting the efforts of member states to eradicate poverty. However, despite these efforts, it is clear that triangular cooperation is still not being used to the fullest of its potential. This can be affirmed by the OECD's Triangular Cooperation Repository of Projects. It notes an ongoing downward trend in the number of newly implemented triangular cooperation projects. While 113 and 100 projects were implemented in 2014 and 2019, only 22 and 18 new projects were reported to the system in 2019 and 2020. It shows this modality that has tremendous attention right, is not being used effectively. So this downward trend can be attributed to issues related to data collection, perhaps to COVID slowdowns. It has been also reported that the implementation of the triangular cooperation into development program is often hindered by prevailing misconceptions related to its utility. For example, the surveys from the OECD shows that many partners believe that there is no clear value in the modality due to it is viewed as too scattered, small in scale, and procedurally unclear. So we needed to address these issues. Let's move to what can be done. But in this context, the Republic of Korea, with its vision to act as a global pivotal state, is strategically well positioned to build on existing efforts to affirm the effectiveness of the triangular cooperation. This is because the Republic of Korea is acknowledged as the only country in history that has transitioned from a least developed country to a developed country. It has experience, it has expertise, it has technology, it has the financing, as Mr. Wong also pointed out earlier. Right? So this experience has enabled the Republic of Korea to play the role of the bridge between the global north and the global south, as demonstrated leadership role that it has played in promoting the paradigm shift from aid to development effectiveness. So with this being said, the Republic of Korea can continue to build on such efforts, right, to promote triangular cooperation in many areas, such as the green and the digital transformation. This could allow it to build on its domestic momentum and international aspirations in these sectors. And let me make a few comments on what Mr. Wong said to close. So this expanded the role of triangular cooperation is possible because the Republic of Korea's unique ODA ecosystem. Unlike other OECD DAC donors, the Republic of Korea's structure is notable in that there are around 45 organizations involved in ODA implementation. Outside of the primary agencies responsible for grants and loans, most organizations generally provide smaller scale technical cooperation projects, right, with 68% of all projects being less than around $765,000. Right. Nevertheless, these organizations are globally recognized for their excellent technical expertise. So this means that many UN agencies in the Republic of Korea have sought to develop collaborative relationships with these government institutions. In addition to being able to jointly finance large initiatives, these collaborative relationships allow the Republic of Korea institutions to utilize the international organization's structure to effectively implement ODA, while enabling the international organizations to share the Republic of Korea's highly regarded technical experience. One example from UNDP's Seoul Policy Center is that we established the SDG partnerships with the Korean partners. And you will see in this slide, right, in 2021 alone, we delivered these SDG partnerships in different areas in more than 30 countries in the world. So my final slide. In this context, it is really worth noting that these projects that bring together the advantages of bilateral and multilateral development cooperation through greatly contributing to UNDP's mandate of eradicating poverty and inequality are generally still small in scale. As such, the Republic of Korea could strengthen its development impact by working with international organizations such as UNDP and other UN agencies and partners, USAID, as well as others, right, to increase not only the number of such projects, but also the individual ambition level. Right? This could truly allow the concept of knowledge exchange to prosper, as countries would be better capacitated to implement the important lessons that ROK, right, has learned over the course of its own development journey. Accordingly, the UNDP hopes to work very closely with the Republic of Korea, with its technical agencies, to continue to develop new and larger scale projects to enhance the scope of its existing ones. So we look forward to this continued collaboration. So thank you very much. Sorry for taking a bit more time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Xu. Out of his presentation, actually, three perspectives brings my attention greatly. First of all, the shocking and uncomfortable truth of HDI. So normal, like 60 high contenders, they actually knock down to 10 if we consider the environmental variables as well. So maybe it's time for UNDP to consider the restructure, the calculation formulation of the HDI by considering the sustainability index more, such as the climate change related perspective. But probably you maybe come up with a new index after the 30 more years of service of HDI as well. And also incredible financing gap, as we understand all about this, especially after the COVID-19 situation. And finally, this importance of triangulation as well. It is widely believed that this triangulation is a very noble concept based on the South-South cooperation, which is more economical, efficient, and immediate, perhaps. However, the fact that the number of South-South cooperation and triangulation has decreased considerably ever since 2014 gave us another message that we need to find a way to encourage further boost up the new wave of triangulation initiatives. So I believe the UNDP can take another leading role in this integrated approach, as you have emphasized, to address and tackle the new global challenges. And finally, thank you for the positive evaluation of Korea's active ODA structure, with 45 organizations involved, with highly technical and also specialized possibilities in servicing and implementing these global initiatives. Thank you very much, Mr. Xu. Please stand by. There may be some questions for you from the internet, I think, from the online. So if you have any questions, please log on to the YouTube or online and just leave us some messages so that we can cast those questions to each presenters. Finally, our colleague from the USAID is waiting, so I'm honored to invite Mr. Heath Cosgrove. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just start by giving my appreciation to the organizers today and for the invitation to speak with you. And I want to thank the audience for coming today. I look forward to engaging with all of you. So as we've heard from the panelists that preceded me, the world faces numerous interconnected challenges coupled with increasing political polarization. We are at a critical juncture. Our actions today will clearly impact generations to come. As we've talked about, the COVID-19 pandemic has strained financial and human resources and reversed many poverty-reducing and development gains. It has also slowed economic growth for nearly every country and increased the uncertainty of valuable development resources. Russia's unprovoked and unjust war in Ukraine has sent ripple effects around the world, especially impacting food security. Parts of sub-Saharan Africa, the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, Middle East, Central Asia, they're all experiencing protracted or recurring crises that prohibit any form of individual advancement. And climate change knows no boundaries. It impacts every person, animal, plant, and organism on this planet, putting all of us at serious risk for our livelihoods, shelter, and nutrition. And democratic backsliding and threats of authoritarianism equally put the stability and prosperity of the world's citizens at risk. From what you've heard from us today, it seems pretty dismal, but we have to ask ourselves, are these problems really too great to overcome, especially with the limited resources we have today? Is there a reason that we should be concerned? How do we prioritize our finite resources to address these competing crises? The bottom line is this: no one organization or country can or should have to do this alone. These are unprecedented challenges we're facing today, and the needs are simply too great. As we've discussed already today, we are better when we work together. So this discussion will outline how we can coordinate and collaborate on solutions for donors moving forward. So to prioritize countries' actions, we must know what's in it for all of us. Why are we doing this, and for whom? The U.S. places development as a strategic pillar in our national security strategy, along with diplomacy and defense. Now, no, this does not mean that our foreign assistance is aligned with the U.S. military. Not at all. Rather, we use development as a national security tool that recognizes when we spend resources to improve freedoms, stability, and prosperity around the world, it makes the U.S. and its citizens free, stable, and prosperous too. When we improve the economy for another country, it creates economic opportunities for the U.S. and its partners. For example, we can tell our citizens why investing in women's economic empowerment in another country provides trade and job opportunities for U.S. citizens. When we improve good governance, health and education, and environmental protection at another country, we also significantly reduce the risk of instability and fragility, thus making the world safer for Americans and others. When human rights and democratic freedoms are advanced, like access to free and independent media, our citizens' rights and freedoms are protected. There is a correlation between development investment and impact on U.S. citizens. This calculus applies to any donor country, including the Republic of Korea. So under our national security strategy, we have regional strategies, such as our Indo-Pacific strategy. In February, the White House released President Biden's strategy for an open, connected, prosperous, resilient, and secure Indo-Pacific region in which all countries are empowered to adapt to the 21st century's challenges and seize its many opportunities. The U.S. government approach to advancing this vision consists of 5 pillars: free and open, connected, prosperous, resilient, and secure. And then USAID, where I work, advances this vision through bilateral and regional efforts across 3 objectives: strengthening democratic institutions to support good governance and human rights, foster sustainable, inclusive, and transparent economic growth, and improve resilience to health and climate threats. We also include individuals, corporations, nonprofit organizations, and more in our definition of local. What it boils down to is this: at USAID, we believe that local communities know their own challenges and opportunities best. When we shift more leadership, ownership, decision-making, evaluations, and implementation to the local people and institutions, the results are more likely to be sustained by local organizations and institutions using their own resources. We also continuously engage regularly with governments, too, to ensure our engagement strategy, sector focuses, activities, and results are in line with host governments' broader agenda. In some cases, we actually work to build the human resource capacities of local governments. and develop fair and open institutional frameworks. So why am I talking about USAID so much? It's really just to set the stage, just to say that policy really sets everything from the beginning. Then we say, well, what's in our manageable interest and that of our like-minded partners? How will we achieve our policy goals? So global peace, security, and prosperity are the ideals most countries strive for. We realize that it cannot and should not work alone, that the challenges we face are the same challenges that our like-minded partners also face. Coupled with the global economic slowdown and increased competition for budget resources, it just makes common sense that donors do more together. The Republic of Korea and the United States have a long history of friendship. After graduating from 30 years of U.S. assistance in 1980, Korea showed the world what it means to create a functioning democratic system, invest in its people, create exponential economic growth, and now, today, stand on the global stage as a major donor partner. We are proud to cooperate with Korea on ODA and development policy. We have ongoing conversations with leadership on development as a national security tool and how to best use development in Korea's new Indo-Pacific strategy. How our policies align will make us stronger working together. From San Salvador to Shymkent to Siem Reap, USAID and Korea coordinate strategic planning and activity implementation at the capitals level as well as in the field. Staying engaged from assessment to inception to implementation and evaluation improves interoperability, effectiveness, and the impact of our development actions. Along the same line, USAID and COICA work together to identify programming competitive advantages and resource bandwidth limitations and how to capitalize on each other's strengths. We currently partner in the Philippines on climate resilient cities and to address ocean plastics. For the first activity, Korea will transfer funding into USAID's activity for joint implementation. For the second activity, USAID will transfer money into Korea's activity for joint implementation. These projects will be conducted in concert with staff from each donor to ensure maximum results. But activity coordination does not always have to be through fiduciary or contractual engagement. In the Mekong, for example, USAID and the Korean Ministry of Environment, along with K-Water, recently entered into an MOU whereby we will cooperate on transboundary water resource management. Lastly, information sharing. This can take on different forms. I want to point out two different exchanges that USAID has with Korea at this time. The first is staff exchanges. So I play a very unique role. I'm a development diplomat at USAID. I don't provide programs or assistance to any country. Rather, I manage a relationship with the government of the Republic of Korea and its ODA actors to ensure thorough cooperation. At the same time, COICA is sending people to USAID in Washington, D.C. for multi-year assignments where they will sit and work side by side with USAID officers. We find that these exchanges of information are extremely valuable. Also, through the upcoming MOU that we have with MOFA that will be renewed in 2 weeks and a subsequent work plan with COICA, we're exploring ideas to work on joint evaluations. Learning, as we all know, is critical to policy and decision-making, and to the extent possible, when we learn together, we improve our cooperation and ultimately our outcomes. So I make coordination sound very easy. In most cases, I think we all know that it takes valuable resources and time to coordinate activities. We have to look at our human resources, our processes, our budgets, and our program decision makers to ensure that there is sufficient space and resources to coordinate, because we know it is a lot of work, but like I've said, we are better when we work together. So in conclusion, I just want to reiterate that Korea is an influential development player on the global stage. As a global player, we all should be thinking big. How is development, not just ODA, but how is development reflected in your foreign policy? Or at least how will it be reflected in, say, our regional policies like the Indo-Pacific strategy? Sharing resources is an excellent way to coordinate, but it's really rare. This is always welcome, but a less complicated path to effective coordination is sharing information, from policy inception to program evaluation to everything in between. How we can support each other and maximize gains together as like-minded partners. It's very important to ensure that when collaborating and implementing in parallel, again, that our inputs are interoperable. I did not talk about this earlier, but we all know we have bureaucratic systems. Believe me, I know this all too well. To the extent possible, we should all find ways to streamline and create efficiencies in the budgetary and programming decision-making processes. The world's challenges are complex, ever-changing, and can be quite unique. To best respond and in support of policy and strategy, we all need to be nimble and flexible. This equally applies to humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Next, we see that challenges are increasingly interconnected between countries. Take the Pacific Islands, for example. It may be more efficient and effective to address climate change regionally. Same for the Sahel or the Horn of Africa or Central America. We should all explore regional budgets and programming as well as our bilateral efforts. And then lastly, and along my theme of no one can do this alone, there is always a helping hand. When we require partners to support a significant issue, we reach out and ask for help. Know that the U.S. will always be there to support Korea, whether it be a social and environmental assessment to help one of your infrastructure projects, or just to share notes on policy. The door is always open. So just to conclude, there are solutions, meaningful solutions to address today's worrisome global crises. And we look forward to working with Korea and other like-minded partners. And we definitely look forward to watching Korea succeed as a global pivotal state. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Cosgrove. It was an extremely useful and insightful presentation. You have mentioned the importance of interpretation or reconceptualization of the notion of national security for development. So it's clearly differentiated from the defense or simple military operation as we believe. So it's much more fundamental and safer and stable ground and foundation for the development. So thank you for this mentioning. And also, I'm very happy to hear from the US side the importance of the collaboration between Korea and US. Well, CORUS was a new word. It actually started from our negotiation table with the US when we did the FTA. But this CORUS partnership still is valid, especially in the arena of international development. He just mentioned the Asian case, the Filipino case also. I have a case in Central America. Last year, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs started a special roundtable between Korea and Central American countries, and US representative joined us to jointly address the issue and challenges of Central America. So those Korean efforts and US effort maybe also jointly give some positive impact in the region. It's not only the Central American issue, but also the US issue as well. The stability of the Central America and the Caribbean is also for the US as well. So thank you for emphasizing this joint importance of the joint operation between Korea and the US. And finally, yes, it's necessary for streamlining our decision-making process in the U.S. So in the light of this Korea's advancement as an advanced donor and the pivotal role, not only the expanding of the budget and also the partnership with other stakeholders, both bilateral and multilateral, the streamlining and efficient management and execution of the ODA is extremely important for us as well. Also, thank you for sharing all those information with us. Okay, we do have some time for exchanging further ideas and receiving questions and listening further answers from the speakers. The technology is incredible. All those questions are listed up, they are lined up here. But as we have the time constraint, I will just pick one question for each presenter. And first of all, for Mr. Won, there was a question about HDP nexus, humanitarian development and peace nexus, that we have adopted last year, according to your presentation. There was a question that they want to know more about this HDP nexus strategy of the Korean government. And for the Mr. Shu, a lot of people are interested in triangulation, and they want to know the strategy of the UNDP as a leading organ to promote the triangulation. So, I mean, if it's a downfall, there should be the regions, and there must be the solutions and the strategies. So, can you add a little more about your strategy? And just a second, and for the Mr. Cosgrove. Oh, some questions are very, very difficult to answer. Something like, how can developing countries can become donor countries? Not possible questions to answer. Okay. Well, how do you evaluate Korea? What are the reasons that Korea has become a pivotal state in development cooperation? Is it technology advancement, experience of development, or potential as a global living donor and economic power? Out of all those, what would be the one important factor that make Korea special as a pivotal state? That was the question. Okay, so shall we give another round for answering those questions from Mr. Won?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. And as for the HDP Nexus strategy, it basically means that Korean government will further promote coordinated and coherent approach to actually to address the root cause of the conflicts and possible global challenges. And we adopted this strategy late last year, and it focuses on, actually it also highlights, I mean, if I recall, increased investment in the fragile states and the areas where the conflicts are prevalent. And it also highlights the strengthening of collaboration between, not just within the Korean government, but with the other multilateral organizations and the CSOs. So it's as I mentioned in my first intervention, the challenges that the global community is facing is very complex and complicated, and in line with our priority in promoting the integrated and coordinated approach, HDP Nexus is like a strategy, is a key instrument in implementing our integrated approach. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. This integrated approach, not as a target, fragile state, but on the normal situation, those H, D, and Ps can be considered in a more comprehensive manner. Well, if not, it's cross-cutting, but it's definitely the very important considerations for that. Thank you very much for the answer. Mr. Xu, are you ready?
No, but I will try.
I know it's an impossible question.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
It's very good questions. And so first, let me say that, as I mentioned earlier, UNDP is part of the UN development system. And in the UN system, we do have the UN Office for South Cooperation, which is responsible for advocacy, for strategy, and for coordination of all UN's effort to promote South-South and triangular cooperation. So we're part of the system. We're also implementing the UN's strategy for South-South and triangular cooperation. So this is one. But secondly, UNDP is the largest development agency of the UN, with the largest, presence in developing countries. And it has a very broad, development mandate. So we do get a lot of, requests for collaboration, for support, to find the solutions, essentially, right? So there are so many complex challenges today. And so we are often asked by our governments to help them find the solutions or co-develop solutions. Right? So part of the solutions exist in developing countries. So there is a demand, for us to source, such solutions that are relevant, appropriate, and innovative, right? From developing countries to developing countries. So we're well placed, to do that. Many of our agencies who are present today, I know they also have dedicated capacity for that. Right? So this is the second. So we have a presence, we have a demand, right? So the challenge is how to meet that demand. Right? So how do you find the supply that meets the demand? How do you find the financing, right, to facilitate the exchange of ideas, knowledge, or solutions? Right? So that's what we're trying to do. For example, UNDP has a knowledge management strategy. So, and in this knowledge management strategy, we have, for example, a structure called the community of practices, right, in 8 areas. 6 areas of our focus of our strategic plan. We have 6 sort of signature solution areas, but we also have community of practices in SDG integration and in health and development. So what we're trying to do is to use this community of practice, which are practitioners, experts, right, in and outside the UNDP, to find opportunities for South-South collaboration whenever there's a demand for a solution. So we try to automatically look at whether the request for a solution, let's say, or demand for a discussion or co-development of some kind of solutions, present South-South and triangular cooperations itself. So not just waiting, to specifically, go for South-South, but to really try to look at, opportunities proactively. Right? And also, we know that developing countries, right, also have finances, right? So although there's a gap, there's a significant gap, but developing countries will prioritize what they need. If they see that UNDP or any UN agencies can offer value through, through solutions that are sourced from a developing country, they're always willing. Right? There are always willingness to find solutions, to find monies to pay for this. And also, there was a question of why developing countries would pay. But the developing countries also have development cooperation programs. Right? Turkey, for example, have TICA, right? Thailand have a TICA, right? And China now established the aid coordination agency. Right? And many Indonesia, for example, has a development strategy for cooperation with developing countries. India certainly has a significant program. They, in fact, has established a trust fund in the UN Office for South-South Cooperation to promote South-South and triangular cooperation. So if we know there's a genuinely relevant and effective solutions that in need of funding, right? Whether it's a real how to get the job done, or is exchange of experts, or a training program and so forth. Right? So we can always find the solutions. So key is that we take this modality seriously as an opportunity. Right? So we don't see this as just a form of collaboration, okay, that should be added to traditional bilateral or multilateral cooperation, but really, right, as an opportunity that can be utilized effectively to support developing countries. So finally, I think very, very important that I think we really needed to listen to the demand of developing countries that are finding ways that are useful for them. Because a solution that works in a developing country may not work well in the same way in another developing country. They needed to be adapted to the local needs. Right? These needs can be affected by legislations, for example, by languages, right? By the systems of governance. So we needed to be very sensitive about these specific issues. And I just give one example, right, to say that we can actually do it. Right? In India, for example, UNDP worked with the Indian government, right, to have developed an electronic system to manage a vaccine stock, right? And also develop capacity. So it is a cloud-based system for managing vaccines nationwide, right? And that was developed pre-COVID. And even pre-COVID, we were trying to find ways to help other developing countries to emulate the examples from India, because that will allow the electronic management of vaccine stock nationwide. You can reduce waste, you can know the quality, the temperature of the cold chain, and so forth, right? So what we developed, we invested. We didn't really easily find the money, right? But we invested the money to promote this solution after COVID more intensively in a set of other developing countries in Asia and in Africa. Right? So I'm happy to say that this system, for example, has been adopted in a number of developing countries with their own language and their legislative environment. So things can be done, and we're trying to do it. That is to be concrete, to be proactive, to really think about the needs of developing countries, and try to work together in partnerships. Right? So if Korea, for example, right, will step up support for triangular cooperation. Right? We have infinite possibilities to explore. Right? So I will stop here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. And also, it was very useful also to know about the Indian case of vaccine management, not only very important platform for developing countries and for us as well. I know that we have also wasted some of those vaccines. Demand and supply is a very tricky issue in triangulation and South-South cooperation. I think there are demand, we know that there are demand and there are solutions. The issue is how to bridge those demand and supply in a timely and economically viable manner. In this regard, there is a strong need for, I think, intermediary service or brokerage, whatever you brand it, to facilitate the South-South cooperation initially, because South-South is the platform for further cooperation of the triangulation. In this regard, those agile engagement of the UNDP is extremely important. I cannot find anyone else in this global international development arena doing this role. So I think it's time for you to further boost up this role of the intermediary services for South-South cooperation and triangulation. I don't think it's possible to package every single details So demand is so diversified and solutions are so diversified. Only the agile engagement of the UNDP is required, I think. What do you think about that, Mr. Xu?
Yes, Professor Kwok, you are totally right that with the intermediate service is really needed, right? Because there's always a symmetry of flow of information when it comes to supply and demand. But I must say that many UN agencies actually do focus a lot on these kind of issues. And the UN Office for South Cooperation, I think the Deputy Director will speak in the next session. They have developed platforms, for countries to post their solutions, and for other, developing countries in need of solutions to go there to source, their, possible, solutions. And I know that many other, UN agencies have actually are expanding their South cooperation capacity. I know, for example, UNIDO, right, they have, a dedicated capacity for that. And I know that many other agencies have that. Because if I name agencies, I will miss them. So there's a heightened awareness that the South-Southern Triangular Cooperation can be an effective way to help developing countries to achieve the SDGs. And I really think that the Republic of Korea has a huge role to play, not only in its push for GPEDC, right, the development effectiveness framework, but really dedicated opportunities to support South-Southern Triangular Cooperation. I can give even more examples. Denmark, for example, facilitated South-Southern Triangular Cooperation with UNDP China many years ago, dedicated to support countries in Africa, for example. So there are different ways to modality. As one of my slides showed, right? The Triangular Cooperation, the framework has evolved, over time. So we'll be happy to really discuss more concrete opportunities. Thank you.
Okay, sooner or later, I look forward to seeing you and your team in person. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Xu. Okay, finally, Mr. Cosgrove.
All right, so the question was, in my opinion, what makes the Republic of Korea a special for as a global pivotal state?
Yeah.
I'll be brief. I'm watching the clock in front of me. So we mentioned this earlier. In just under half a century, Korea went from recipient to a major donor in the world. This is a very special model that I think the world needs to emulate. Why do I say this? Korea came in and provided political will, good governance. They put the investments into the right sectors. And today you have a thriving democracy and economy that is a model for other developing countries and how you got there. On the other hand, I think that you bring so much to the table. I'm thinking of Samsung and LG and their modern telecommunication platforms providing safe, reliable, interoperable backbones for good telecommunications around the world. We have Korean firms investing in power distribution systems in Africa. We have Korean biotechnology research laboratories that are creating COVID vaccines. Korea has a place in the world. They've got the brand, they've got the experience, they have the model, they have the political will, and that's why I think that Korea will succeed as a global pivotal state.
Okay, thank you very much. So Korea brings a lot on the table, not as a donor, but also a private sector capacity, and also the governance and democracy, and play the critical role here to bring all those things together. Yeah, Korea's development history is sparkling.
Donor was a given.
Okay.
These were just all added attributes.
All right. I understand. Yeah. Okay. Right. I think we had a good heated discussion, questions and answers, as well as the presentations with regard to the Korea's role as a pivotal state, and also very insightful intervention of the UNDP side, interpretation of triangulation as well. There are many more further deepened presentation and discussion will be followed in the forthcoming sessions. So please stay tuned and be together with us until the end of the year 2022 15th Korea ODA International Conference. So thank you very much indeed for everyone joining us, especially those three remarkable presenters for showing the incredible, good insights to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that concludes session 1 of the 15th Seoul ODA International Conference, and we would like to express our heartfelt appreciation to our distinguished moderator and all of our honorable guests as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give them another round of big applause. Thank you. And now we're going to take a short coffee break, and refreshments are available outside the conference hall, so please help yourself and enjoy your break. And session 2 will commence at 11:20 a.m. on the dot Korea Standard Time. So we have about 20 minutes, so please enjoy your break, and we'll see you again shortly. Thank you.